You get to be practical and magical. Hi, I'm Dr. Alice Rizzi. I'm a licensed psychologist and mindful embodiment coach. And this is something that took me a really long time to admit to myself, let alone be able to say out loud. I am somebody who loves using evidence based tools. That means that every skill that I give is research backed. It's been shown to help people in real life. Not just like one person says, oh, hey, this worked for me, but a lot of people say this works regularly. Those are the types of skills that I was taught in my graduate program when I was training to become a psychologist. And they've really become part of my daily toolkit. When I talk to people, when I give advice, when I offer consultations, when I work with clients, these are my go to skills and techniques that I love sharing because I've seen hundreds, if not thousands, of times that they work. For example, skills for managing stress and anxiety, skills for learning to regulate your nervous system and your emotions, learning how to respond mindfully, intentionally, instead of reacting impulsively or compulsively. There are strategies that the science says if you do this, you will get this benefit. And I love that because it also gives me the confidence when speaking to people to assure them that if only they can commit to themselves, they will get the results that they want. So I leaned on this professionally for a very long time. I really wanted to project myself as somebody who is professional, who essentially only uses evidence and evidence backed or research backed skills. But that only told half the story because I'm not just that person. Maybe I was at one point in my life, but I've evolved like we all do. And ever since I was young, I've always loved things that were magical, a little spiritual, a little bit unknown. I've loved like fantasy and stories and thinking about like what we typically think of as impossible, but thinking maybe it is possible. Maybe it's not quite that out of reach. And I think, especially after going through my grad program, it was really hard to let myself dream in that sense and even talk to clients about what it looks like to integrate spirituality into your day to day life. And I slowly started dipping my feet into manifestation and law of attraction and abundance. And they really pulled at my curiosity, especially the more I surrounded myself by people who were fully in that world, who didn't come from the scientific background that I came from. And I got to see A, how much fun they were having, B, how free they felt, and C, that those tools and techniques and skills also work. So just because something doesn't have a randomized controlled study in a clinical setting doesn't mean that it's total trash. There are so many techniques out there that don't have the same research backing as some of the tools that I learned in grad school, but thousands and even millions of people find value in them. And I think that's a key difference. Something can be really valuable even if it's not backed by science fully. And actually, what we know from our own evolution as people is that science is also always shifting and evolving. And my favorite example here is like when I was growing up, Pluto was thought of as a planet. And now we no longer think of it as a planet, right? Another favorite example is that cucumbers and tomatoes were considered vegetables. Now they're fruit. So I know these might sound silly or technical, but we have to think of it like in the scope of humanity. We are learning new information all of the time. So what we might think of now as silly, ridiculous, impossible, maybe just the science isn't there yet. And if you think of it even in terms of sports and what's possible, we used to think that you couldn't run a 4-minute mile until somebody went and did it. We see this all of the time in business. This isn't possible. Well, now today it is possible. People are super creative, especially when they stop limiting and sabotaging themselves. So, again, I speak from experience. It took me a really long time to be able to say, I am spiritual. I am a little woo. I like magic. And that doesn't make me not a grounded or practical or scientific person because I still am. I'm a psychologist. It's something that I trained for a very long time. And even if at some point in the future I don't end up doing therapy anymore, I will still always be a psychologist. Nobody can take those skills, that research, that experience away from me. And it's something that I treasure very much. And it's just as valuable as the spiritual, playful, magical side of me. So I hope this video is relatable for you and that you can give yourself permission to embrace the different parts of who you are. You get to be analytical and intuitive, pragmatic and aspirational. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And in fact, your world and the world will be that much richer if you give yourself permission to embrace all of the parts of who you are. Thank you so much. And check out some of my resources, togethermindful.com. Talk to you soon.